Hello everyone, welcome to the Call of Duty DFS Slate breakdown, the first game of the playoffs here for the first season, I guess you could say. We're looking at Major 1 here on March 3rd, getting this video out at a reasonable time for once compared to every other video we have. We have, again, an interesting 4-gamer today. I'm not sure what these schedules looking like going forward, but typically for the majors we get like 1 or 2 days of DraftKings content and then it's just kind of gone. Hopefully DraftKings changes that and we actually get some decent stuff going on here, but I wouldn't have my hopes too high. But we could still have a really solid fun first day to look into. The first thing I wanted to talk about was the updated coaches poll. So if you guys remember, we had a coaches poll earlier, like before the season started. And, this is what I used kind of to get an idea of the teams from an insider perspective, as opposed to kind of what we knew nothing about. For the most part, it was good. Some parts bad. Like obviously they had London 11th and they're looking like a really solid team now. Everything else kind of feels the same. You could kind of just swap New York and London and you have a good feel here. Obviously FaZe is looking a lot better than Toronto, but I mean for the most part they were doing pretty well here. Coach predictions for now the major, what we're looking up ahead at now, they have FaZe in first. Obviously pretty understandable. They were definitely looking really dominant and hitting getting back to their extreme high levels of form at the end of this first regular season split there. So they had LA Thieves second. I think that's fair. I feel like it's a little high on them. But I still think it makes sense. This team I'm probably going to be a little bullish on. I just have not... I don't know why I closed the wiki here, but... sorry, for the Major 1 qualifiers, I guess. Yeah. I just didn't see like a ton there in terms of who they played. So they played FaZe. Oh, sorry, I should look at it from this angle. They played FaZe, lost 1-3. They beat Florida, New York, and Paris. And they didn't beat any of them in a convincing fashion. Florida, New York, Paris. Again, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to look at the standings right above them and say, wow, they beat the 3 worst teams in the league. And they're automatically bumped up to like the number 2 slot. I don't know about that one. I do think that they do have a good amount of veteran presence there. There is something to be said, I think. This is probably something I'm going to talk about a little bit going forward for at least these couple of slates. For at least these playoffs, this major, is the difference between online and LAN play. So LAN, I'm sure you guys have a basic idea. It's just when an in-person tournament where online factors don't come into don't matter. They don't come into play. There's no ping you have to worry about. Everything's just on a fair playing field. And one of the biggest things that matters when we're going to LAN for these in-person events is composure, experience, maybe some leadership, that kind of stuff. The out of the game stuff matters a lot. We saw it a lot last year where there was definitely outlier teams who performed well online and people who didn't perform well in LAN, and then obviously vice versa, teams who did not perform well online and then did well on LAN. So we're definitely going to be looking at that pretty heavily to kind of skew our stats. I think early on, FaZe first definitely makes sense. LA seems a little overrated, but I think they're definitely in the mix. I'd argue that there's like a solid first tier, and FaZe is probably the only one in it. I definitely think they can lose to like a few of these teams, but they're definitely looking a lot better than everyone else. I know that's for sure. I think there's a solid second tier here with LA Thieves, the Ravens, Texas, and Ultra, and that's probably where you guys could see by the total like voting points that they got. It definitely feels like the similar. There's a little bit of a gap, a 16-point gap between LA Thieves and the third place teams, Optic and London, who are tied for third. It feels a little weird, honestly. Like, I just don't think there's that big of a gap. I think London or LA is being a little overrated. I think part of it is the fact that they do have, if we look at their roster again, um, LA has Draza, Kenny, Octane, Envoy, uh, three experienced players. Kenny and Octane especially been around for a long time, and they're still doing it well. Envoy and Jaraza are a little bit newer, but they're still not like rookies necessarily. I still think they're going to be fine when it comes to LAN. I feel like people are giving them a little bit too much LAN credit here. I think they're still good. They're definitely probably better on LAN, but I don't think they're that much better. Like they get a slight bump maybe. I think they're going to have advantages over some of the other teams, but probably not Toronto. I'm not sure about that one. I just feel like LA Thieves is probably getting like a little bit too much steam here. They are the favorite against Toronto. It is a super close game, super 50-50 at the moment. Definitely makes sense. I definitely see it. They're both pretty close teams. Toronto not far behind them. Um, we did see Toronto slump pretty hard towards the end. Um, this is probably a better way to show it. LA Thieves just beat Toronto 3-1. Toronto lost to Optic 3-0. But then we see Toronto also beat... they lost to Seattle. They beat LAG and Florida convincingly. So they played against three decent teams, and they beat the two worst teams. So that's understandable. They did have some substitute in there for, I think it was just one series, but they won it anyway. So not a lot to look at there. So I just think this is this is something I kind of say a lot in my other videos and looking at stuff is I just feel like the stocks on LA Thieves are pretty high at the moment, and I just feel like it's a good time to sell. And I think Toronto stocks are pretty low. I think this is a good time to buy in. So I think in that series, looking at like a Toronto upset maybe, we'll look at the DFS aspect here in a little bit. But overall, I think the rest of the league looks good. I think the Seattle Surge are kind of fizzling out. Their early magic just seemed to take them pretty far. They looked really, really good in their first couple series and then quickly vanished away. So not looking great there. We might need that info in a little bit, but I think for the poll, that's about it. We can get right into talking about these games. The first series, London Royal Ravens against the Los Angeles Gorillaz. I think at first glance, this line seems super, super weird to me. This is again another one of those things where LAN is the difference between online and LAN is definitely going to be a difference maker. It is a different game, and there has been another year of experience to be had, but London looked really bad on LAN last year in Call of Duty Cold War. Again, new game, more time to develop. There's definitely going to be a sense of confidence with London now. They're definitely looking a lot better. They're looking like a competent, like elite level team in this game, as opposed to last year. They were like definitely towards the bottom end, and that definitely plays a huge factor in it. Confidence does. Again, but it just still feels a little weird to me. We look at the LA Gorillaz lineup: Slasher, Gunless, Asim, Hook. These are all four competent veteran players. They're not going to be phased by the like stage, the crowd, the atmosphere that comes with playing on LAN. I just feel like this matchup should be a little bit closer. I do think London definitely looked better. They've definitely been the better team. There's no arguing that. I just feel like we look at find LA here. So LA Thieves actually beat London online. That's something to take note of. They lost to Boston and Minnesota in close game series. Uh, LAG got the win over New York. They lost to Toronto. So, in terms of like series wins and stuff, it's still not looking that great for London or for LAG here. They do have the win over London, which is a little interesting because that also plays into the odds thing. Um, we look at London. I feel like they have like a small little. I don't know. Uh, it just feels a little odd to me. It just feels like it's a little too soon, too fast with London here. They do have like a solid set of victories. I think beating Optic looks good. Don't know how much it matters now because I feel like the Optic team that was playing week one is very different from what they are now. Same with Seattle. Like Seattle looked really good and they fell off pretty hard, and then you think London got the better of Seattle uh, at that time. My apologies. And then they beat like Minnesota, who's on the lower end. They beat Florida, who's definitely on the lower end. So it's not like they've beaten really, really bad teams, but they haven't beaten elite teams, that's for sure. Um, and of course, they do have the loss to LAG, the team that they're playing. So I don't know. It just feels like it's a little too fast, too quick here for London. They are a team I like. It's gonna be interesting. I think it's going to be a close series. I'll just say that. I think for sure it's probably just going to be close. I think the maps are going to be close. I think overall it's going to be close. Maybe there is like a 3-1 score or something. I could definitely see that happening. We could look at the breakdown of who's winning and what. That's definitely can be used to be a pretty telling thing. I don't know why I keep going to the wrong page, but we look at Lag and London. We look at how they did in the regular season here, Major 1 qualifiers. Um, we see Los Angeles Gorillaz 7-2 in hardpoint. 7-2 in hardpoint. They're losing the search and destroys and controls. Pretty bad there. London 6-3 in hardpoint, so maintaining that. They have a neutral record in search and destroys, so that's decent. They have 3 Berlin losses, so hopefully they can not play Berlin maybe. Looks like LAG like to play that a lot, so I'd guess they'd both probably agree to go to Berlin. Probably slight edge to LAG, but close either way. The big thing here is the controls. 4-1 for London, 1-4 for LAG. London looking really good on the Gavutu, especially 3-0. LAG 0-2 on Tuscan, so they probably want to lean towards the Gavutu, which is better for for London. So it's definitely like a interesting close dichotomy there, especially the hard points leaning in the LAG favor. The rest of the game modes going for London. Again, I just think the main thing here is I think it's just gonna be. Well, I need to stop closing these tabs. The main thing here is I just think it's gonna be like a new LAN environment for the 2 London players. I don't know why I can't. Gizmo and Nasty. They both coming over from the European Challenger scene. They both lit it up online. I just feel like it really is almost like a different game when you're playing on LAN. I know a lot of people will probably try to make arguments and stuff for like it's not that different. I really do think it is. I really do think that the difference between online and in-person matches like this, especially in Call of Duty, just because of how influential connection matters in Call of Duty, the time to kill is so low. So if your extra bullet is hitting before the enemies does, that's the difference between a kill and a death, which can snowball pretty quickly. And if you're getting those things repeatedly going against you, it can be like a different game. It really can be. I mean, we know Afro has a little bit of experience. He, I believe, was a rookie, or he was just a newer player last year. So we expected him to take a step up this year. I do like London. I like them a lot. Like they, in general, this just feels like a weird spot to me for them. Again, they have Nasty and Gizmo. They've both been performing really well. But again, it's online. It's a lot different as opposed to gearing up, getting ready, going on stage in front of fans, all the lights, all the pressure, like this being the playoffs now, like all that stuff matters. It really does, as opposed to just sitting at home in the comfort of your own clothes, your own bed, your own setup. All that stuff matters. And LAG, they just have the experience across all four members. Um, the only one I'm really confident in London having experience on is Zero. Zero's been a part of the scene for a long time. I feel comfortable in him. Afro's probably there, but we don't know for sure. Nasty and Gizmo, maybe. It's a toss up there for both of them. Again, the stats aren't looking great for the LAG side. I get that. It seems pretty unlikely. I just think this series is a lot closer than it probably is lined. So that's just kind of my reasoning. I'll just take the underdog flyer here with the Los Angeles Gorillaz. Not a super smash spot, but I think it's gonna be closer. I think they do have the upside in some of these players. I think they are pretty cheap. Yeah, a lot of these LAG players are super cheap, so they're going to enable us to make some other creative types of builds. I do like some of the other favorites in this game, on this slate in the day. So I feel like LAG is going to be a solid underdog pick for me here. We'll obviously see how it pans out and stuff. Afro is still super underpriced. I don't know why. I imagine he's going to be super popular because he is a minus 310 favorite, one of the best players on, like, a really, really good player, and he's super cheap. So I'd imagine you could get a lot of leverage against Afro if you're leaving him off, going with the LAG side. And I think that makes a lot of sense, especially early on. First game on LAN. I just think maybe the bright lights will get to, like, Afro, Nasty, Gizmo, especially now that there's some pressure on them. They've been looking really good online. People are going to be talking them up. People are going to be picking them to win. So with all the pressure and everything that's added up, I think the LAG side just makes a lot of sense to me. So that'll be my pick in the first one. I'll go with LAG. I go with LAG in 5, but I still think they can definitely get there with their DraftKings scores. I think the respawns will be close. They have a good chance to win both hard points, which makes up a lot of ground in terms of the score. So I'll go there with the Los Angeles Gorillaz. Probably 3-2, but who knows? Call of Duty's pretty random this year. Atlanta FaZe Boston Breach. Last time these teams did play earlier in the regular season, I was on the Boston side. They got smoked pretty hard. Definitely kind of just gonna learn my lesson there. I think the FaZe team that we were analyzing at that point was definitely very different than it is now. They're looking like they're getting back to form, which is scary for the rest of the league because Atlanta FaZe's form is so dominant. It's like borderline not close and not fair for the rest of the league. Last year there were 5 majors. I believe they won 3 of them. I think Toronto got one and Minnesota got one. If memory serves, I believe that's it. Maybe Toronto got 2, FaZe got 2, and Minnesota got 1. I'm not sure, but the point being is FaZe was always there. They were always competing. They were the team to chase. They were the ones in first place all the time. They started off a little slow this year, but definitely picking it up, coming back into form. Celium was looking like the best player in the game, and it might not even be close, honestly. BZ stepping up, Simp is getting there as well. Like they're looking like they're getting really dangerous levels of form. They're minus 1600. It's hard to get any juice, any value out of that. I definitely think from a DFS standpoint, 10-4, 9-8, and 9-4. That is a super tough price tag to pay for all of these players. I'd imagine you're going to want some piece of it because they are super, super likely to sweep. Sweep bonuses do matter. There is something to be said, I think, with the FaZe guys here. They are consistent, doing really well, but you look at their scores, like this Paris game, 85, definitely beatable. 130 is tough. 126 is good. 124 is good. 114 definitely beatable. So it's not crazy there. Abizi's had a lot more ups and downs. Like 2 of these 5, this 140 and 150 is really, really impressive. Both are really, really good numbers. Definitely tough to beat those scores. That's for sure. 106, 118, and 79 definitely beatable. Simp, he's yet to kind of really get on the board in a big way. He had the good series against Minnesota, 124. I wonder if Arcity is even broken 100. Nope, he is not. So definitely probably just kind of try to avoid him. I think that's fair. I think if you're getting to Atlanta, it's probably just a Beasley and Celium. But even then, like, getting a sweep is a really good, safe way to get points. Like, they're probably guaranteed like 100. But the problem is, like, their odds are they're going to put up like decent, respectable scores. Like, if a Beasley and Celium got like 120, you're probably chilling. But those are definitely beatable. And that's kind of what it comes down to is they're going to be they're going to be highly owned. They're super expensive, and I think their scores are probably just going to be pretty beatable considering that they're most likely going to sweep this Boston team. So that's just kind of what it comes down to. It's going to be tough to get there to fade this team. I probably will just have to end up playing like some Abizi and Celium. They're going to probably be like in the majority of my lineups, but I'm definitely going to leave them off in some spots because, I just think they will put up DK scores that are beatable. LA Thieves Toronto. Again, I kind of touched on this one a little bit earlier. For DraftKings, it's like a whole different thing. Like, LA Thieves are now the favorite, and they're all super cheap. I don't know. It's just tough. Like, I don't know. I feel like I'd just be kind of beating a dead horse here talking about this one. I just feel like this is a buy low on Toronto, sell high on LA Thieves. Again, LA Thieves have beaten the 3 worst teams in the league, I think. So, like, what have we seen from them? And it's not even like they've won in dominant fashion either. They have a 13-8 map count in 5 series against 4 really bad teams and FaZe. I kind of get the hype. I get why people are going there. I just don't believe it. I mean, like it's tough to make the case on why like LA or why on Toronto's better. Like their stuff looks a little bit worse, but I think they played Optic when Optic was really hot. They played Seattle when Seattle was really hot. They played LA Thieves after those 2 losses. I don't know. It's just like I just trust Toronto a little bit more on LAN. I just trust them. Like they've been competing for titles. Like that's the expectation there with Toronto and these players. I think again it'll be super close. I just feel like again when you consider the fact that LA Thieves are kind of mispriced on DraftKings, people are probably gonna want to get to them pretty heavily. I think like pretty much all 4 of these LA Thieves players are definitely live. So I'm probably just gonna go like a little bit contrarian, get a little bit different here, and just go with the Toronto side. I think they're probably a little overlooked, a little undervalued, a little disrespected here. So that's gonna be my pick. Again, I think it's probably gonna be a close series, so you could definitely get to the LA Thieves players. It probably makes more sense to do so. I'm just gonna try to like fade the public a little bit and get different and go with Toronto. The 4th series is Optic Texas against Seattle. I actually have like a pretty strong take about this one. This line is actually like a little off, I think, honestly. I feel like Optic should definitely be much bigger of a favorite. I know Seattle looked really, really strong when they came out the gate swinging and they utterly decimated like New York and Minnesota and stuff. But they just have looked pretty weak since then. They've looked pretty pedestrian. Like they got the decimation of New York, and then they beat Toronto. So people were really high on them, me included, and then they've just kind of fallen off super hard, super fast. I just don't know where this team is really, and I just feel like they had a really hot start. They were kind of just the first ones to figure out the game a little, and now that everyone else is catching up to them, they're falling behind pretty quickly. I just don't like this Seattle team that much for winning that often. I do like their players like Sib and Pred, like they've been looking good. I just don't know if they can continue. I just don't think they're quite on that level. I just think they had a great start, probably overvalued, probably overvalued still, honestly. Again, relatively new names to the LAN situation. We look at the Seattle roster. Accuracy and Mac have a little bit of LAN experience. I don't think Sib and Pred do, and that's your two best players. Accuracy definitely has a lot. I'm not sure about Mac. I think Mac's kind of been in the amateur scene a good bit as well. I just feel like, again, like similar to London, I just feel like Seattle is in a tough spot when I go from online to LAN. I'm just not buying it really, and I think Optic has been looking lights out. The team is coming together. They're all looking really good now. They had a really, really tough first week. There's no doubt about that. But the thing to remember with that first week is they were up 2-0 against both of these teams. Minnesota and London. They ended up getting reverse swept in both of them, but there's definitely like a real world where Optic gets the 3-0 over London and Minnesota, and then we're looking at like a, I don't know, what is that, 15-1 map record. Like we're definitely like very much in the realm where that's a thing. So we're getting a little blessed at the fact that they dropped 2 series. Their score isn't looking great. Um, Seattle is a similar score to them. Like everything just kind of points towards Optic to me super heavily. I think they have a lot more LAN experience. The pedigree is there. I just feel like everything points towards Optic pretty heavily. So I'm surprised that they're only minus 185. When it comes to DK, they're again super expensive. Illy's pretty underpriced relative to how well he's been playing. I do want to get to some Shotzi and Dashi. They have a lot of upside. Shotzi's looking like a really elite player as well. He's like probably like a top 2, maybe top 3, depending on who you ask. So I like getting to Shotzi as well. I think looking at the slate as a whole, I want to take the LAG underdog. I like them. They're pretty cheap. They make a lot of sense. Probably just not going to get to Hook. I'll mess around with ASIM, Slasher, and Gunless most likely. They're super cheap. I think they definitely put up some stats. We'll look at the... we can pull up the player stats now to get a better feel for that. So we go to like overall kill ratio. Yeah, just look at the regular season. We look at the Los Angeles Gorillaz. So Gunless, Asim, Slasher, Hook. So for some reason it's just completely inverted. Hook at the top, even though he's been their worst player. Yeah, I mean it's definitely just gonna be Gunless, Asim, Slasher. Asim would probably be the third option after Gunless and Slasher. I do think there is some merit to getting to Hook. He's probably going to be super under-owned because there are so many expensive players that are good. I'd imagine people are going to want to get to a BZ, maybe Gizmo, I'm not sure. They're going to want to get to Shotzi. They're going to want to get Celium, Dashi, probably not Simp, but maybe Nasty. I don't know. Like, there's a lot of names up here. I don't know. I think people might just going to glance over Hook. He does have really high highs. We know that about him for sure. His lows are just also just as bad. So if he can string together good maps in a row, he could definitely be like a surprise pop-off pick. Again, we look at his numbers, 120, 120, 105, 120. Like, you're going to take that a lot. Gunless doing really well as well. Slasher's a little down there. His action is pretty low. That's the problem with Slasher. Asim super highs, low lows as well. So that's kind of the problem with LAG is they're pretty inconsistent despite them being pretty veteran based. Hook and Asim have been around a long time and their ups and downs are kind of crazy. It's definitely Gunless, maybe a mix of Slasher, Asim. Maybe I'll get to a Hook lineup. I'm not sure, but I just like that side a lot. Kind of went over this Atlanta. I like them a lot. Good sweep potential, but everyone's going to be there. It's probably just a BZ Celium. I'm probably not going to get to any Simp or RCDs. Not going to get it to any Boston players. Yeah, that's kind of it. Don't want to talk too much about it. Minus 1,600. And this one, I feel like all the value and all the flags should just point towards LA Thieves. But again, it's just like the letdown potential of LA Thieves here is just so large. That's kind of what it comes down to. Kleenex has been Toronto's best player, I think, or he was early on. I don't know if he is anymore. Um, I guess we could look at the Toronto players. So we can kind of just ignore Hicksy. He's their substitute player, but he should not be playing. Should not see the field really. But we have Insight, Bance, Kleenex, Cammy. They're all pretty condensed. Nobody really standing out above the rest. Bance kind of makes some sense there. He's super cheap, putting up decent numbers. 66, yeah, that's definitely like affordable. You can get to. I like that. Kleenex is super high highs. He's a good player in that aspect. I like him. I like pretty much all these Toronto players. It's just kind of comes down to who gets there. Like it's pretty random. Like again, they're all really close in overall kill death ratio. None of their stats really stand out from each other. I think Bance is a really good value, but that's like the only standout thing. I still like Insight, Cammy, Kleenex. Probably Kleenex at his price is a good value there as well. I'd imagine Insight and Cammy maybe get a little overlooked. They definitely have really high upside as well. I wonder if they have how their DK scores are looking. Yeah, not great. They have not been playing well overall. I think the upside is there. They're probably going to be low owned. Like if we look at the LA Thieves side, like Kenny, Octane, Draza, Envoy, they all rate out really well. Just from like a kill death ratio standpoint. So if you think they're going to do well, it's again going to be tough. Kenny is super cheap specifically. Octane draws, they're like right behind him. They're also cheap. So I'm just going to probably take the leverage underdog shot, or not underdog. I guess technically they are the underdog. But the like close match leverage spot, I think, here with Toronto. Definitely Bance, but going to mix and match some Insight, Cammy, Kleenex. I think the value on LA Thieves is fine. That makes sense. I just personally am not going to get there. And again, Optic Texas versus Seattle. Optic Texas looking much better. I love this spot for them. I think Seattle's been a little fraudulent. It feels harsh to call them that, but it feels a little true, honestly. Like I just feel like they've been overperforming wildly to expectation. I think they're going to come down to earth. I think this one could be pretty gross, and I think this is going to be probably like the most one-sided series that there is all day, and we have a minus 1600 to compare that to. So yeah, I think Optic are going to come out swinging. I think they're going to make a statement win here. I think they're going to blow Seattle out, and yeah, that's going to be where my money's lying. Again, we look at the kill death ratios. We have Shotzi, Dashy kind of above everyone, but Illy's doing pretty well. Illy's definitely been stepping it up more. We have Scump down there at a 0.97. He had a good start, but kind of cooled off. I could see him getting a little bit to Scump, but he seems like he's probably like the fourth option there, and I just don't want to get there when he's 84. I think getting down to Illy at 76 just makes a lot more sense, but I definitely do like Shotzi and Dashy still as well. So yeah, I think that just about does it. I think that's probably just going to be it for me today. Talking about some Call of Duty on the March 3rd slate. I think the way the tournament breaks down is we should have another 4-gamer tomorrow on the 4th. Yeah, we should. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. We're just going to let it fly here. Again, take the big underdog shot here on the Los Angeles Gorillaz. Slight underdog with Toronto. Big favorites of Atlanta and Optic. I think the Optic smash spot is coming, and I like them a lot. Going to mix and match some of the names I mentioned, and hopefully have a recipe for a good day. So yeah, that's going to be it for me today. Best luck to you guys. Again, see you probably tomorrow for the next 4-gamer, and hopefully we have a little bit more money in our pockets to play with. So yeah, see you guys then.